Uh-huh. Coffee Conversations with Greg J is on. Good morning. Coffee Conversations, ColumbusSongCoffeeCompany.com, right? Here where we give you culturally relevant conversations on a variety of topics, always coming from a global perspective. So, we might be right here in our local community where we originate in Long Beach, California, East Village Arts District, Dream Creator Studio. Or we may link up all the way across the world, across the diaspora, because this is important to what we uh, are all about, which is to build bridges of music, arts, and culture all across the globe, from Africa to African America. That's what we're doing. So many things happening right now. Today, we want to get into a very interesting conversation. As you may know, the state of California passed a bill that approved a task force for to explore reparations proposals. They've been meeting all over the state, analyzing how to uh, disseminate reparations, I guess, among the people. There was a recent important ruling that you have to prove that you are an American descendant of slaves. There was so many, uh, I guess, touch points that they are trying to craft in order to get to how to pay reparations. It's a very fascinating process. I'm kind of wishing there was a better way to monitor everything, but this morning we're going to be talking to a renowned journalist, a writer. No doubt if you uh, ever read any of the Black newspapers in the state of California, you've probably seen some of his writings, and that's Antonio Ray Harvey will be joining us in a little bit. He's been watching those hearings and those meetings and has very strong insight into the Reparations Task Force in the state of California. Shout out to the Los Angeles Business Council. I was at their conference up on the campus of UCLA. I saw the sister Stephanie Wiggins, who's the CEO of Metro. All the buses, all the trains that are running through the city, she's the boss. Big job, right? Very impressive. My first time, actually second time, but in this type of setting. But yeah, sister got it going on. Big up to Stephanie. She's got a big job and she's doing the work that is required in order to be successful. Maybe we can get her on Coffee Conversation soon. Just checking on my connections here, y'all. Let's see what's going on. Okay, hold on one moment. I think you might be in the wrong. Hold on. Let me send you a new link. Okay, Brother Harvey, hold on. Stand by, my brother. Let me see what's going on with you. But anyway, yeah, it was a very fascinating conference. They were focusing on housing. They were calling it the Mayoral Housing Summit. So it was a lot of people who are doing, big property developers, the people who are involved in achieving affordable housing, people involved with addressing directly the homeless situation in the area. It was a lot. Congresswoman Maxine Waters was there, Mayor Garcetti was there, and Stephanie Wiggins, CEO of Metro, a lot of different high-end, executives from the banking world. It was where private sector meets the public sector to discuss housing and the crises that's happening in Southern California, probably indeed the country. Hold on one second, my brother. So Excuse me for one moment, y'all, while I get the link together for our guy. All righty. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. All right, here I am. I'm back. Hopefully, our guy will come right back in. Antonio Ray Harvey coming through to discuss reparations, the Reparations Task Force in the state of California. You know, we used to say at KJLH, reparations in memory of our ancestors. That's what we used to talk about all the time. Front page. Yeah. It's a good conversation to have. And I guess at the sociological and distribution level, very much a complex, I guess, concern, right? Yeah. Back to the LA Business Council show, to gave you a shout out there to let you know that we spent the day yesterday on the campus of UCLA exploring the business situations, housing situations that face our region, important election time coming up. And I want you all to make sure that you vote. We had the mayoral candidate John Jackson on here the other day, and a lot of you were appreciative of that. We'll be reaching out across Southern California to see if we can get people associated, and if not the candidates themselves, on to our podcast, Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Right now, our eyes are turned to Sacramento, the state capital of California. I met their mayor yesterday, at that LA Business Council. They approved the Reparations Task Force. So they're studying how to give reparations out. What are the proposals? How do we do it? Esteemed reporter, journalist, writer, and all around good brother from the California Black Media Network, Antonio Ray Harvey. Where are you, brother? There you are.
Here I am. Can you hear me, Greg?
I can hear you. Yes, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Man, you've been front and so first of all, thank you so much for coming on to Coffee Conversations with Greg J. And thank you
Oh,
for
I certainly have been looking for this. I love your work. I love your layout. I love your professionalism. Uh, Everything about Beach City, and I see that you publish a lot of my reports. So hey, thank you, brother.
yes,
And I'm glad
sir.
and I'm glad the LA area, the Southern California area, is receiving that. I appreciate that, everybody.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, yes, yes. Oh, that's an awesome thing, brother. So now here we go. We got the Reparations Task Force going on in the state of California. First of all, explain to people what exactly is that? Maybe somebody on here that doesn't know.
What is that? The task force?
Yes.
Okay, all right. The task force, which is legally titled the Assembly Bill 3121, which is a bill that was authored by Assembly. Well, she was the Assembly person. Now she's the Secretary of State, Shirley Weber. She wrote this bill, I think, back in 2019, and the governor signed it in 2020. And what it is, it put together a task force to investigate the harms that had been done to Black Californians that was related to Jim Crow laws, redlining, eminent domain, and things such as that, housing, education, and economic things. So basically, what they're doing is putting together an investigation to collect data on some of the harms and trying to correct those harms. And this has been going on since the first meeting convened. It's a nine member panel. The first meeting convened back in June 2021. Now, this is the first in the nation. That's what makes it significant, because we've been talking about reparations for years, and
Mhm.
pretty much
Mhm.
everybody else, the Japanese Americans, the Jewish and the Holocaust, the whole nine. Everybody has gotten their piece of the pie,
Mhm.
for the harms that affected their communities, but not the Black ones. So
Mhm. Mhm.
all eyes are on California to see if they can get this right. They have a nine-member panel, one Japanese American to be exact.
Mhm.
I think four women is on the panel, and five uh, uh, four Black males, and two of them is lawmakers. And that would
Mhm.
be Assembly Person Reggie Jones Sawyer, is down from the LA area, and also Senator Stephen Bradford.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah,
Interesting.
it's a big undertaking. But as I said, the rest of the country is watching to see how this thing turns out. They have to turn in a report by the end of 2023. Matter of fact,
Mhm.
they have two preliminary reports that must be turned in by June. And I
Mhm.
think right now it covers like 13 harms, uh,
Mhm.
atrocities that affect Black Californians. Correct.
Man, you're right. We have been talking about this for a long time. I know all of my years you got the late Professor Charles Ogletree was writing
Right.
books about it
Mm-hmm.
and analyzing the
Yep.
what could be. You have Dr. David Horn out there at Northridge. I mean, there's just so many people, academics who've been turning over this conversation. A lot of lawyers and oh man, you're right. It's been a big, big deal. We want our reparations. Somebody on our that's listening to us already is like, okay, so they are really gonna give reparations in California. You know what? It's hard to believe, right? What are some of the
Yeah.
findings thus far with the Reparations Task Force that you've been able to?
Oh man. Ooh. Uh, just to put it in a condensed form.
Mm, mhm,
I've covered every meeting. I covered the ninth meeting. They first had the first in-person meeting in San Francisco at the Third Baptist Church in the Fillmore district,
mhm,
which is Dr. Reverend Amos Brown. He's the pastor of that church, and he's a member of the task force.
mhm,
Okay, and yesterday they were talking about the prisoner pipeline, and education
mhm,
harms of it. Okay, there's a whole range of issues that's going on with us, that I have discovered in these past nine meetings, and it's almost, you want to say it's never ending, but there's stories that I knew going into this whole thing that I would find out about things that I never would before.
Mm,
And I was
mm,
really been focused on, the situation here in California, because I have been
mm,
to the Lynching Museum in Montgomery, Alabama. I have
mm,
been to Birmingham, to 16th Baptist Church in Alabama as well. I have been on the beaches of the Gulf Coast where, blacks couldn't swim. And I have been to slave plantations in Louisiana and things like that. But I always been concerned about what were some of the harms that was happening here in California. And that's what
mm,
these task force meeting has been able to present. Uh,
mm,
as I said before, you got the redlining issue, you got the eminent domain, and the eminent domain in all my studies and research here in California pops up everywhere.
mm,
Okay, people need to not get and understand it. We have been trying to build, and that's what the task force reparation has presented. Also, we have been trying to uh, be productive citizens in our own areas as far as education, businesses, and um, I said it all: education, business, and housing and things like that. But some of these things have been taken away, and that's what
mm,
the reparation task force meetings that I've been getting an understanding of it, especially with the
mm,
eminent domain. People have been
mm,
trying to start their own business. Well, once they do, and they start, to prosper, Bruce Beach is an example, which is down there in California, somehow it's taken away from us.
mhm,
Okay.
mhm,
So, yes, those are some humongous harms. Okay. Another thing that I also was brought to my attention during these presentations, Greg, the highway system,
mm,
how the Highway Act of 1957, okay, when they started the interstate system, how it was designed to destroy our communities, especially right there in Los Angeles with Highway 10.
mhm.
Okay, they went through these black communities, black and brown communities, to try to destroy these communities. Okay,
That's
and
right.
some of these
That's right.
communities were coming up and up. They were being prosperous, or they just felt that when there were black people who were doing well, who wanted to move in better communities, because they want their kids to go to better schools, they wanted better housing and stuff like that. They found ways to stop them. So that's one of
Mm,
the things, one of the significant things that I have found out through these reparation task force meetings. And I'm just talking about California.
mm,
That's been so intriguing, so interesting, so remarkable. Okay, some of the things that they have done, and I'll go back to it again. Eminent domain and redlining in the
mm,
housing keep popping up.
mm.
Okay, I
It's
understand that.
interesting, Tony. I'm gonna tell you, I was at this conference up on the campus of UCLA for the Los Angeles Business Council. It was the Housing Summit, and I was there representing the West Angeles Community Development Corporation in my post as one of the board of directors.
Yes,
But as they were talking about the future in California, they referenced very strongly the Eisenhower transportation act or doctrine or whatever that is what caused these freeway infrastructures to happen, right? And you're right, when they executed that in the 50s, 1957, it just cut through the freeways, cut through black communities, and affected them really deeply. Some people will remember, you mentioned the Highway 10. Some people will also remember the 105, the 91, when these freeways came through. It split through the gut of strong black communities in this area, and I know that cities all over the nation have a similar story. That's what you're talking about right there,
yes,
and
that is
now
exactly what I'm
at
talking about.
this business council, they were talking about, okay, in the LA area, 2028, the Olympics are coming. And so the federal government in the Build Back Better and all this infrastructure talk that we hear, they're going to pump trillions of dollars into the region to, build more roads, upgrade the roads that they have, all that. So these people do not play. And they kept referencing, you know, the Eisenhower days, and then also seeking equity so that they don't repeat the history. But we know how that goes.
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah. Eisenhower, that was the administration who started this
Yes.
whole thing, and it went from 57 to the middle 1970s, and I'm hearing upwards around 700,000 homes and people were displaced because of this massive project, highway project. And they left it up to a lot of the cities too. I think it was like 41, 42 cities across the country. So you're right about that, Greg. So a lot of communities out there that they left it up to them and their engineers to design this stuff. And if you go to certain places, like, hey, look, hey, that place over there in Arkansas, West 9th Street, okay, they're growing, okay? They're spending money in it. These black folks are spending money in their own community. We got to go through that, okay? That's what they did in Little Rock, Arkansas, okay? We also know about the Tulsa thing. That was 20, 30 years ahead, okay? But Los Angeles, San Diego, Fresno, okay, Sacramento, all right? Those highway projects went through every one of those highway projects went through Oakland and San Francisco. Every one of those highway projects went through these communities, and they destroyed these communities. Oakland, San Francisco is really unique in what I found, because those highway systems, when they went through those black communities, everything, all the highways, 580, 680, Highway 80, 880, all made a beeline to San Francisco, but they were cutting through all these black and brown communities to get there. All right. Wow. All this stuff caused pollution. As I said, displacement, okay, mental health problems. All this that we suffer today is behind some of these issues, such as the highway construction project. Great.
Really, really interesting. Now, I heard that the task force has determined that reparations, we would have to prove that we are American descendants of slaves. And it's kind of like, at first you would say, well, duh. But then at the other hand, you're like, well, we in California, we got a little different story than our cousins and them down south. It's just like, does that decision take under consideration the history of the Great Migration and all of that? And then, I think it automatically, I've been studying my DNA, and I'm going back fairly far, but I haven't found. I have some Johnsons out there that I will assume at the year that they were born, they were in slavery. We're talking about 1850, so I'm assuming that Wesley Johnson was a slave, but I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know, because I don't have, like, where's that plantation and thus and so. And I think a lot of people are like that. They can't get their lineage, back. And then I know that my uncles and my dad, they came out of the South riding those trains to get out here to California. You know what I mean? So there's a whole Great Migration aspect to trying to make our connection to direct connection to slavery.
If you living out here on the West Coast, and that's what you're basically saying, most likely you are the sons and daughters of the Great Migration going west. Okay, in particular, I'm from Champaign, Illinois. That's downstate from Chicago. I am a son of the Great Migration coming from the South. Okay, so yes, another thing is too what I have found out too, and I'm just only making a suggestion. Okay, I took the ancestry test, and I found, my lineage going back all the way down, through West Africa as well, Greg. So that's a starting point, because one of the things that's going to have to be determined is lineage, because that's what they voted on as far as lineage, not race-based. Okay, so people from the Western Hemisphere, from the Caribbeans, the Bahamas, those certain islands, and Cuba, they wouldn't necessarily be eligible for these type of reparations the way task force has set it up. And remember, that passed by a slim margin, between race-based and lineage. Lineage won out 5-4, through the members. So that's one of the things that they're going to have to determine as far as, who is eligible and how they can prove their eligibility. And they're coming up with ways right now. They have a 5-member panel right now of experts, mostly economists, to try to determine and put together some parameters. And I forget what some of them, it was like not a think tank, but it's like a hub to to submit identification, lineage, all the way back to your grandparents who were slaves. who were brought here
Mhm.
as
Mhm.
slaves. So that's one of the other things that they have to determine since they came to the lineage part. And I think they're going to get to that because they got some really great minds. They already testified. They testified in a few of these meetings.
Mhm.
One of them is William Darity. I don't know if you had mentioned him early up in your show and stuff. Who has written a few books on reparations, and he came up with a number, something like 14 trillion. Where it might
Mhm.
be more than that right now. Okay,
Mhm.
but and he has some thoughts about connecting yourself with your past so you can, make sure that you get to reparations as well. So that's where they're at in this next step. It's going to be pretty interesting how they do that. But I do think they have some great minds, to pull that off. What this task force panel is trying to do, they're trying to get it right. Okay, I
Mhm.
said it before. The rest of the world, the rest of the country is looking at this to see if this could be a blueprint for the federal level of reparations. So right now, what California is starting is at the lineage part. There was a lot of people upset about the race-based part, but there has to be some decisions made, and the task force they understood that because they grappled with that for hours back in February. Matter of
Mhm.
fact, they postponed the meeting in February and they made the vote in March, as you already know, Greg. And then that's when
Mhm.
they came up with the lineage. And I won't say
Mhm.
one last thing, too, because of the race-based thing. I don't think other people from the rest of the country understand. It's like, hey, why are you not including everybody? Well,
Mhm.
California had these certain laws that they have to abide by, and one of them is
Mhm.
Proposition 209. Okay,
Yes.
all right, which pretty much dismantled affirmative action here in the state. So
Mhm.
what the experts were telling them before they made this vote, we would have a better shot at litigating lineage than we would race-based because of
Mhm.
certain laws that we have here in California. And
Mhm.
Proposition 209, if you vote for race-based, that's the first obstacle you have to face. So that's why they went with the lineage side of things. So if
Mhm.
your family was property shadow slavery back in the 19th century, after slavery, you would be eligible at this point. Okay, if we invite everybody in there, Proposition 209, which was brought back and was shot down again about the voters, that's going to present a problem.
Mhm. 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 So reparations, all right. So they've got their work to do. That's what I hear for sure. And it's good to hear that they have, great minds attached to this very serious business. I know Dr. Shirley Weber, yeah, she's the Secretary of State in the state of California and former assembly member. I remember her on the campus of San Diego State University. She is definitely, that woman in terms of economic and deep study and what can happen. And I'm glad that she was able to advance this bill to create the task force. And I'm glad that they, would go through with a study, and our history as Black people in California is different than our brothers and sisters down south, and you're right, redlining, all of these things. We had a professor on here. We just learned recently about his passing, but he has a study about sundown towns, and we had
Yes,
him on here, and I think he was from
yes.
Champaign, Illinois too.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
so
my
he
hometown.
he he did this whole study, and you would be surprised the communities that had ordinances that if you could be arrested if you were found in the town after sundown, and Inglewood is one of them, Torrance, all these types of places all across the state. And I wonder if those types of restrictions back in the day would be folded into their equation as they try to figure out, okay, what do reparations look like?
They did have this discussion too, and I want to preface the fact that one of our former writers, Quincy Lagarde, she she was the one first wrote about those California sundown towns. I mean, some of these places, after 5 or 6 o'clock, if you was caught there, yeah, you would be arrested or
Or
injured or
worse.
something like that. It was
Yeah,
something's going to
yeah,
be a
yeah.
problem. But yes, that is one of the things that has been folded into the discussion. How they will approach that Greg, uh, is yet to be seen at this point. But I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
they will address that in the proper moment because, at least what I understand, everybody, thought that. Well, it is on the books that California was a free state. You should
Mhm.
be able to do
Mhm.
everything that you want to do, but that
Mhm.
wasn't the case. Okay,
Mhm.
what the Fugitive Slave Act didn't go into effect until 1852. Well, at
Mhm.
that point, they were already bringing slaves from the deep South state because they were mining for gold up here about 40, 50 miles from north of east of Sacramento, but they were bringing in slaves, for the manpower.
Mhm.
Okay, and later on, it's like, well, you can't do that. I'm out here mining by myself, and you got two or three people that do this stuff day and night, all day. Just give them a water break, and that's it. But I'm out here by myself doing this, so that they passed. That was one of the reasons why they passed that law. But slavery has existed beyond that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. Also, I just wanted to just bring it up to bring Sacramento in focus too,
Mhm.
because there's a family here. Actually, like three families, but I'll start with the Burgess family.
Mhm.
Okay, they own land where they struck gold at in 1848, 49, and they were able. Their great grandfather was brought here as a slave. Okay, he was freed, and later on he accumulated a little wealth, and he bought some land. Well, somehow back in the 1930s and 1940s, okay, just like a Bruce Beach
Mhm.
movie
Mhm.
all over again,
Mhm.
they were able to take his land by eminent domain. Okay, and this is beautiful up there. Okay, these people could have been ranchers. Okay, they could have been vintners, own wineries and things like that. Generational wealth that
Yeah.
was taken from him. So I do want to bring that up too. But
Yeah,
go ahead.
so many stories, man, in California. I mean, when I worked at a bank before I got into the industry when I first fresh out of the Marine Corps, and I worked in the foreclosure department. And when you would get ready to foreclose on a home, you're pulling all of the original documents and all that. And among those documents would be your covenants, conditions, and restrictions. And you
Yeah.
would be surprised with how many communities that are now, Asian, Latino, African American, that had restrictions on that no Negro shall occupy this except in a domestic capacity, no Mexicans, no Asian. I mean, it's really
Covenants.
something, man. How these, like, I bet you if people in the home you're in right now, I bet you go pull all of those original documents, you would probably find that if your home was built, sometimes you have older homes and stuff like that, right? And so it was
Mm-hmm.
really, really something to see that they would go to that extent, to um block, to block us from to block equity is what I'm saying.
And they
It's really
have been
something.
blocking it. Yes.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
there's another one too, Greg. I just want to mention this. I want your listeners to understand this, okay? Because I found this through the task force meeting while we're on this subject,
Hmm.
okay? South of Oakland, the community of Hayward. It's like 10 miles south of Hayward,
Hmm.
okay? There was a there was a town there called Russell City. It was known through the years, they used to have a lot of blues festival, okay? But when people were getting redlined and eminent domain were taking over in certain problems in the San Francisco Bay,
Hmm.
okay, this is where they moved to. So this is like a
Hmm.
community of 1,400 people, okay? Basically black, indigenous, people of color, but mainly black folks, okay? They had their own homes. It was a little farming community, basically. And 1961, Hayward's like, well, we want to build an industrial park here, okay? And it's kind of close to the sea, so it's a nice, beautiful area, okay?
Hmm.
We want that community. They wiped that whole community out back in the
Wow.
1960s, okay?
Wow.
Wiped the whole community out. Came back, knocked down all the buildings, all the structures and stuff, and took over it. So today it's an industrial park, okay? This is just some of these things that exactly what you're talking about, from your experience in the banking industry that has been going on for a lot of years, that almost like a secret, that people don't understand. Okay. I've learned all of this through these California Task Force reparation meetings, and thank goodness, I've been in to position, to dwell into it as far as reporting through California Black media, to stay right on top of it. Because the mainstream media, they report on the medians before and afterwards. I'm going right through it. I'm plowing right through all the stuff. I'm going back and looking at all of this stuff and bringing it back to you so I can talk to you on your radio show.
Man, I mean, and it's important because, we need to know, man. We need to know that, we need to know the meat of the matter here. It's important history. Yeah, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, I'm just running through my mind just so many, one thing that has perplexed me is, okay, so there's a movement in California in some spaces, and I don't know if you've seen it in your communities up there in Northern California, but there's a movement sometimes to rename schools, right? So schools are named after like California governors that now, when you go back, the record shows that they were crazy racist, in their official capacity as governor of the state. And so there's been a movement to doggone it remove their names. And one name that always trips me up, because in LA there's just a lot of people. So David Starr Jordan, right? There's Jordan High School. There's Jordan Downs Projects. There's Jordan High School in LA, Jordan High School in Long Beach. There's probably Jordan High School. There's parks and everything. But he was the first president of Stanford University.
Wow.
When you go back and study, okay, well, what made him who he was? It was because he was the leading eugenicist of the time. His doctrine of eliminating Black people through population control, and it's called eugenics. You can study it. And at the time, as white society was trying to figure out what to do about their Negro problem, this is a popular school of thought. This is serious business, you guys. This is when we're talking about population control. It's documented. It's not me just sitting here being all emotional. It's history. You can see this is American history. So David Starr Jordan was one of the most prominent voices in this movement of how to control the population of Black and brown people. And quite honestly, it was in his day, it was very popular. And I'm going to go on and tell you all that when they founded Planned Parenthood, that is one of the pillars that it was founded on, was eugenics. And they've, I guess, evolved now to where they're more helpful. But, people need to study. But I say those types of stories because in this reparations consideration, it seems to me like the task force would have to think about, okay, who do we name our institutions after? Who do we honor in the state, and how harmful is it? Just like now, the Indians, the native indigenous people, they getting theirs with their casinos and whatnot, aren't they?
Yes, they are, especially around here in Sacramento. I mean, we got Red Hawk, we got Thunder Valley, Cache Creek. Okay, all listed on a reservation, indigenous people's land and stuff. And getting back to what you said, they have changed a couple names around here already. Schools, really, one in particular right here in South Sacramento. It was called Gady, Gady Middle School, I believe. Okay, now Gady Middle School was named. We didn't know until way after, I guess some people brought it to the Sacramento Unified School District attention that Gady was part of this population reducement thing, situation that you're talking about. He was a German, though. Okay, so this was around the time when Hitler was running things. Okay, this was actually a name on a school. Okay, well, they replaced that name with Rosa Parks. I'm
here.
Okay, I my screen had storm. So then we placed that name with Rosa Parks, Greg, in that capacity. So what are you talking about? That's another thing that the reparation committee has to consider too, as far as what are you going to do, about these educational institutions that was really, had had these type of names blasted all over everyone, and it was like look down and on, on people like we're in control.
Yeah,
That's basically,
people need to know that that course of study was very prominent among the academic, communities like what you're talking about. This is the time right before Hitler, and I have, as I went deeper into my research in this space, because it was just amazed me that we have so many David Starr Jordan monuments, if you will. And he was just this leading, eugenicist. And as I started studying it, I learned that at the founding of the Nazi Party, they weren't always this vilified institution. There were a lot of white Americans of the day were with it. You know what I'm saying? And the academic premise to the activities of the Nazi Party in Germany were germinated, if you will, through the writings of people like David Starr Jordan, this person you're talking about, this whole movement of academics on the West Coast that were promoting this population control notion through eugenics and the science of it. And that's documented, man. You can see those connections, and then whatever happened, all of a sudden the Nazis became the enemy, but at first it wasn't like that.
No, it wasn't.
Right.
It's just remarkable that you obviously you've been educated on this too. That there's so much stuff out there that a lot of our people don't know that really affect us as things such as this too. Because I mean that's crazy. Okay, it was almost like the lost cause in the Deep South. Okay, after they lost, they started putting all these monuments all over the place to leave all these figures around here as if they won something, okay, and the Confederate basically lost that. They did lose that war, okay, and you got these war criminals. You ride into these little southern towns, they got these big statues of these war criminals, who are trying to control an institution that they really believed in, such as slavery, okay, with the 11 states succeeded, from the Union and stuff, and it's still going on. It's way out here on the West Coast. Okay, and that's basically what that is. It sounds so much about that lost cause, quote unquote lost cause thing. That no matter, okay, they feel like that they won where they lost too. So if you understand what I'm saying, it's crazy.
Hey Tony, you might have knocked your microphone out a little bit. I can hear you, but it's changed up all this a little.
Okay, let me see if
there
I
you
can.
Go. Nope.
Okay, all right, is that better?
That's better.
Yes, sir. Sorry about that.
Hey, no worries. You're absolutely right, and man, I'm just really curious. Now, let me ask you this. Now, these Reparation Task Force, that seems like an important hearing if we wanted to be able to view it. How do we do that? I mean, it's almost like they don't. Well, I know we don't hear. Well, let me say. Well, I guess we do hear it when we read our local Black media. We see, okay, Antonio Ray Harvey. You're telling us when, where, what? Okay. So, where can we see the hearings?
All right, right now, that's one of the issues they're going to talk about this afternoon. They have been having a communication problem. They did hire 2 communication firms and UCLA Bud Center to handle the public relations so they can get the message out, and the language out so everybody can understand what's going on. That has not been happening, but I think that's going to be settled today. Normally what I do, because a lot of this stuff I have to do my own footwork. I go to the California Department of Justice page and click on the California Task Force Reparation, and it provides a lot of the information about the meetings, but it hasn't been going well in that aspect of trying to connect the community to what they're doing, and they're doing some great things. I have to admit, they don't all agree with each other, but that's what this is all about. But people need to understand that, because when they do submit these reports, people are like, well, why did I know? Why, and you have a chance to voice your opinion about some of these certain issues if they affect you or someone else or your family and stuff. So the communication part, they really have to come down on that and get these communication firms in line so they can get these messages out. But at this point, the best thing that I can tell you is please go to the Department of Justice, California Department of Justice page, and they will be able to somehow assist you. They have numbers and websites that you can try to reach out to people to get these things. That's about to be handled today, though,
All right,
and
let me
hopefully,
see. I'm
you can
getting
get on
ready
that
to
list.
let me see. So you said this is the Attorney General right here, right?
Yeah, yes. I'm sorry, yes. For
No,
the
no, I'm just
California Attorney
trying to
General,
find
Rob.
them. I'm gonna put the link in the chat for everybody to check it out. You can see you'll be able to see who the members are of this task force. That says the task force for study, it's task force to study and develop. What, my computer, come on now. Yeah, this is good. Rob Bonta. Okay, this is the
Yes.
task force to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans. There it is.
And they do streamline the meetings too, so there should be a link on that for today. Matter of fact, they're in session right now, and they'll be in session till 5 o'clock today. It's the second day of a 2-day meeting, which is also is going on at the Third Baptist Church in San Francisco. And just, once again, I just want for the listeners, just the first in-person meeting that they had. They have been having virtual meetings ever since last June, but this is the first in-person meeting that they've had out of the 9 meetings. So it's pretty much a historical 2-day meeting.
Now that multi-trillion-dollar figure that you mentioned earlier, so is that just in California, or you say estimating?
No, I'm glad you brought that back up too. That was out of one of William Darity's book that he had wrote with his wife, Kirsten Mullins. That 14 trillion, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
$14 trillion was on the federal level. They working on the numbers for California. Okay. And at this point, they said, it exceeds the budget. But I'll get into numbers later on when I have a more concise idea of how they're going to calculate the 13 harms. They have something like 13 harms right now, and they're going to calculate each harm. Okay, they're going to go by each 13 harm, and there could be some more harms that they're going to and atrocities that they're going to add to it, and then they'll come to that number. It's going to be up there. It's going to be way up there because we're talking about what California has a black population of 2.6 million people here, and I think they curved it down to like 2 million people here who are actually African Americans. So a lot of work they have to deal with, and those numbers have to come close to those the population numbers. So
man, because now I mean, you have the immigrant community who from Africa and the Caribbean and everything. The diaspora is here, and there's a lot of intersections. So, I mean, I guess you put your best foot forward, but it seems almost insurmountable to trace American descendants of slaves.
Yes, yeah, and you just hit it on it too. That was one of the issues before they voted on the lineage and the race-based aspect of the meeting. Of course, they want the lineage route that these particular communities within the Black community, how are they going to be affected? Where they're going to be able to be compensated as well? And those discussions are still going on, continue to go on. I'm not no expert in these fields, and I don't try to provide my opinions. I try to be objective and opposed to be a subjective. I'm just hoping that the 9-member panel get it right because this is a panel that's made of attorneys, people in education, higher education, and yeah, we're just looking forward to them to get it right.
All right,
And
that's what's
handle
up.
all. There's a lot of bases to cover, and there's a lot of work that's being done between the meetings too, Greg. So
Mhm,
let's just hope that they get there. It's going to get pounded.
mhm,
Okay, they're going to
mhm,
hammer. They're going to come with. They're going to come after this with everything that they got full force. Okay, so let's just hope that this group that they can get it right. Nobody's going to be happy about it. Okay,
mhm,
all right, and that's what they were telling. I mean, and you mentioned a great lady in Secretary of State Shirley Weber. Okay, because she was like, look, I understand. All she was concerned about when she wrote this bill was what happened to us in slavery. Okay.
mhm,
Yes, there was this thing that was going on in Cuba and the Bahamas and
mhm,
and the other, these other Caribbean islands
mhm,
in the Western Hemisphere. She said if it comes down to that, we can help them write a bill. Okay.
mhm,
Even with the British colonies too.
mhm,
Uh, we can help them write a bill. The only thing that she was concerned about is about what happened to us during slavery and after slavery and how it
mhm,
affected us after slavery stuff. So
mhm.
when they come to that point, when they get to these things, and I hope they do, they try to, cover every stone that they can and address these things because these questions are going to be coming up because they will be coming after them. Hopefully, they will get it right in some aspect, in some form.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. We're in the midst of a cultural revolution as everybody has gone through the last 2 years or more. We've had the pandemic, we've had racial reckoning with all of the aspects of our social justice, our dealing with the police, just on and on and on. And so I think across the world, the diaspora is in an aspect of cultural revolution. Here we are exploring reparations in the state of California. You mentioned the Caribbean. It's Prince William and Kate Middleton were in Jamaica, and publicly, the prime minister of Jamaica is like, you know what? We're tired of being in the British Commonwealth. We're going to go for it to be a republic, and we want reparations from the crown for the
Yep.
slave trade and all of that. We've already seen the nation of Barbados say, you know what? We are out, Britain. We're no longer a part of the crown. We want to stand on our own. I know Trinidad, Tobago, there's a strong conversation in that nation of doing the same thing. Over in Africa, on the continent, you're seeing so many nations making moves to break away from their colonist past, and this is powerful. A worldwide cultural revolution. How do we fix our? How do we? Um, Relieve ourselves from these supremacist systems? How do we get compensated, and how do we move on in the future?
Yeah. A lot of those answers have to be answered. You are right. That's really big. I mean,
Mm,
yes, there is a cultural revolution that's going on, Greg. And that we pretty much all align in the same issues, of course,
mhm,
because we're all connected. I mean, we're all Black people, okay?
mhm,
No matter where we come from, the Western Hemisphere, North America, and parts of Central America, as as I have studied, with the Brazilians and Salvador and those places. But everybody's woke
yeah,
right
yeah,
now, okay,
yeah,
with some of the things going on. I mean, I know we do have a thing stirring up, with the war going on with the Ukrainians and the Russians and stuff. But at least on our end, we're woke, okay,
yeah,
and it is a tough time right now, okay, and this all boils down, to racism, okay.
mhm,
I
mhm,
know
mhm,
we didn't ask to be here, but we're here, okay.
mhm,
And I'll repeat something else that Weber said, okay. When she go visit those countries in Africa, okay, where they're having cultural revolutions, as you said, okay. Well, what she's done there, she come back to America. There's no place that she can go, put up, set up camp in a town that she came back or a country that she came back in Africa. She has to come back here, okay, because her lineage was cut off from Africa. So America, the United States of America, that's where you're from. That's where you dwell. That's where you are. Okay. So we have to consider those type of things too when we're talking about this cultural revolution. We want everybody to be straight. We do. Okay. You're trying to find out about your background. I'm still trying to find out about my background. I'm still trying to find out about my background right here on this soil. Okay, that's why I go to.
Right? It kind of gets cut off, doesn't it? You know,
Yes, yes.
like you get that ancestry.com and then all of a sudden crickets. You get
Yeah,
back to the 50s, 40s, then you're like, where my people?
yeah. And that's the
uh,
question.
yeah.
I always got this thing too. It's just a personal thing. It's like, who am I?
Mhm. Mhm.
Who am I?
Well,
And I
I
mean, I
gotta
know
tell
who
you,
am I, but who am I?
yeah, and that's a question right there. That is a central question. Now, for me, I have been dedicating, all of our work now is all about building a bridge of music, arts, and culture with Africa and African America. And you're absolutely right. Born and raised right here, bro. I'm from San Diego. You know what I mean? And my folks are down in Texas, and however far I can go back, I'm on the search because I'm trying to figure it out. But I did my ancestry, and I know that my lineage is from Cameroon, West Africa.
Mhm.
Uh, when I began to, organize tour groups to Africa, I was just amazed at so many of the similarities. And from the time, my very first time when I stepped off the plane, and everybody looks like me. There's a
Yes.
there's a spiritual fulfillment there. And what I want to do when you say who am I would love to know the person who left those shores of Cameroon or wherever in West Africa and went through those slave dungeons on the ships and survived to get here to the United States. I need to know who that G was because they were a G.
And they were probably some of the strongest people that you will ever meet in
Yeah,
it, in this existence because they made it.
yeah,
Okay. Was
yeah,
about 5, 6, 10 million people who
yes,
were part of the transatlantic Atlantic slave trade. Okay.
yes,
A lot of them did not make it. A lot of them like ended their lives. Like, I don't know where I'm going. I'm taking my life. I'm jumping off this boat right now
right,
and stuff.
right,
Well, whoever they were, Mr. Johnson, okay, whoever that family on your lineage was, they were some strong
yeah,
princes and kings and queens, and
yeah.
you know what I mean? Because
Yes, I
they
do.
they made it here.
Yeah,
Okay, came here in shackles, but that was strongest of the strongest. Okay,
right, right, right. Wow. Okay,
there's so
brother
much to
Tony.
see.
Look, man, I thank you so much for coming on with Coffee
Oh
Conversations. We're gonna have to make this a regular right here. This is really
yes.
good. It's
Well,
really
as I
good.
said, I'm going to cover this definitely with the reparations
Mhm.
up and down, on and off, left and right until it is. As you already know, I do cover a lot of issues as far as public policy and politics here at the Capitol that concern our community, our Black
Mhm.
community. So I'm always open to come back to talk about anything,
I met
Greg.
your mayor yesterday.
Steinberg.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Gerald Steinberg.
I
Yes,
met him.
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's good.
We of course we're on first name basis and everything like that. So I'm pretty aware of him, because I cover city government as well too and
Okay,
stuff.
that's right. That's right. Good
He's doing
stuff.
a lot of things these days though, but it's just pretty interesting though. It's
Kevin Johnson came off the basketball court and came to be y'all's mayor, and now he's a restaurateur.
right. I know he opened up a restaurant, fixes down in the what's that, LA Live.
Live, yeah.
Let me. And he has one here in his home, his old neighborhood, Oak Park neighborhood here in Sacramento. That's the first fixing. He has some like 3 or 4 businesses in this
Right.
area. But
That's right.
I'm gonna tell you, Fixin got some great soul food, folks. If you want to
Right.
come, we don't have that many restaurants up here in Sacramento. And okay, and if they have one down there in LA, if you get a chance, check it out. Because the brother, he's the main chef. He put together a nice little package, a nice little menu. That food is good. I just want to bring that up. I'm not trying to be a commercial.
No, that's right. That's right. Good stuff. Good, good,
Fixin
good.
is real.
We're all
Fixin
about the
soul.
cultural tips. Man, good stuff. Hey, you know what, y'all? If you missed this, it's on our page, Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Get it Get it, get it. Go over to YouTube and like and subscribe the page. We need that. We're working on our YouTube game, but it is on several pages across Facebook. We're over on LinkedIn. We're on YouTube. We're going to repurpose the audio so that you can hear it wherever you get your favorite podcast. And that is just look it up, Coffee Conversations with Greg J. We're on all the different platforms, Apple, Spreaker, Google. We're just out there. We're trying to do this thing, and we're looking at culturally relevant topics from a global perspective. Tony, we had a journalist on earlier this week from the South Africa Broadcast Corporation.
Okay. All right.
So Sister Nomsa Imdululi, a good friend of mine there, and she's, presenting news, writing news
Yes.
for television, newspapers, and radio, and big, big journalists. And so we were comparing like the war in Ukraine, the big news over there is in South Africa. They're like, okay, United States wants us to be so, about the Ukraine, but Russia is the one who, sanctioned the apartheid government, who supported us and all that. So why should we go against them? It's a deep perspective, right? When you hear this. And she was saying how, the politicians may say that, but they have to remember back when they did that, Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union.
That is true.
Yeah,
that is true.
It's very, very deep stuff. So, man, it'd be good to have a round table with you and Nomsa and a few other folks. Global orders.
I would love that. I would love that. That's pretty interesting. I'm glad, that's some of the things that we don't hear about. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody from, that part of the world had to bring it back to our attention. I would love to be a part of that.
Yeah. Right.
I would love having a seat at that table, Greg.
Yes, sir. You got a deal. All right, y'all. Make it the best day ever. Don't forget, we're doing the Creative Economy series. We're exploring Blacks in classical music and the creative economy. Listen, as we go through this recovery, no matter where you are right now in America, right? Your city is going through a strenuous recovery plan right now, trying to get back onto our feet. On top of that, you got your president talking about build back better and all of this whole thing. And as all of these dollars are flowing around, make sure that your community is taking a small piece of that dollar and investing in arts and culture in your community. This is essential. We need our arts. We need our culture. This promotes tourism in your city. This promotes community goodwill. And in the Black community, we need our arts and culture. Support your plays, support your musicals, support your symphonies, your choirs, your performing arts organizations, your dance organizations, because we need your venues. We need a thriving arts community in order to be strong. That's my soapbox for today. Make it a great day. Peace and blessings.
Excellent.